Professional sports and college sports to some degree are facing a number of challenges. So let's take a look at some of them. First is the millennial challenge, and that is that a lot of millennials really don't attend games. We may not see it at the University of Oregon on football Saturdays, but at sports stadiums around the country, millennials will prefer to watch games through a mediated channel rather than go to the games. The rise of technology has made it so much easier to view sporting events from the comfort of their own homes. So, can a sports team undertake some type of a responsibility initiative that will bring millennials into the stadium? We'll have to, or the arena. So we'll have to wait till they open up again. Um, but we'll see if that'll happen. Technology isn't just a problem in that it keeps millennials away. Many fans connect with their favorite teams through social media, and so teams must be constantly updating and reviewing all of their social media activity. If teams aren't proactive with social media and they don't have the capability of enticing fans through social media, fans will not get involved with them. And if fans aren't involved in social media, there's a concern there will be an ultimate drop off in game attendance. And then, so there needs to be a consistent voice for sports related activities and all other, and that includes responsibility related activities at the team level. And then comes the additional challenge of making sure that your players are being as consistent as they can be with the team's message as well. In order to get fans into the stadium, you not only have to have a good team playing another good team, but you have to have game day experiences that cannot be experienced at home. And so while it's easy to see the game, the actual, battle um, via on television, it's harder to have that experience of being in the stadium. So um, teams have to devote a certain amount of money for in-game experience, and that's tough, especially if no one is showing up to the games because they're not having good in-game experiences. So um, it's it's the in-game experience is sometimes the last priority, but it needs to be heightened. And if you have been to any type of live sporting event, you'll know all the things that happen in the stadium to keep fans interested and engaged, and just keep the energy up while the teams are taking a break or during halftime or whenever that pause happens. So, can responsibility initiatives be integrated into game day experiences so that they come off authentically? A lot of crucial catch efforts had a halftime or a before game show where they honored survivors, which brought a lot of people an emotional connection while they were in the stadium. And so, those types of events can be very meaningful if they're done authentically. Sports deals with lots of different people, and whenever we're dealing with people, we deal with the issues that people have and the things that they do that they may not be proud of. So one challenge the sports industry will probably always face is the hyper focus on negative stories surrounding athletes. People tend to really like to see famous rich people stumble and fall, and so those type of news stories can be really highly engaging with fans, and it's hard to turn around a negative story into a positive story. Um, so there's issues on health and doping, and um, how women are forced to meet standards that are based on how men or boys develop. So inequity stories. So there's just a lot of negative stories that need to be talked about, but they need to be balanced out with more positive stories. Or else we just get rid of all the bad influences, but I don't think that'll ever happen. So there are a couple different power challenges regarding wages and racial issues. In terms of wages, there's a wage gap between men and women athletes playing the same sport, um, men and women coaches for the same sport, and coaches for men and women's teams for the same sport. So a man who coaches a women's team is going to be paid less for a man who coaches the men's team in the same sports. And these wage issues are unfair and probably illegal and need to be addressed. There are also some pretty strong racial issues that most people in positions of power on sports teams are white and many athletes are black. There aren't nearly as many black men and women in management in sports as there are white men and women, and certainly not in relation to their presence in the population. Um, and we're also seeing that players' race affects salary in many leagues, and that's illegal. So we have a lot of power challenges in terms of equity that have to be addressed. Playing sports is risky, and athletes understand that, but the media has been paying more and more attention to injuries and the long term effects of injuries in a lot of sports, especially football and soccer and ones where your head gets hit. And what we've seen is that when injuries become more newsworthy, when information about injuries is more readily available, that the number of kids playing sports, which is also the pipeline of future athletes, that number starts to decline. The share of children aged 6 to 12 who play a team sport regularly declined from 41.5% to 37% over a 6-year period. And this report said that children are going to video games, television, and other electronic distractions, and that athletics just can't compete for their attention. But we've also seen that when a kid is from a high income home, their participation in sports has held steady or increased. Um, and so there's kind of an anomaly there. Another reason why the participation by kids has fallen off is that parents think there's too much emphasis on winning over having fun, and most parents are worried about the risk of injury. So, all those things mean that kids are playing less sports, and there could be fewer um, kids ready to take on the role as a professional athlete in the future. And then once we get through this pandemic, who knows what the sports world will look like? Will people really want to go back into stadiums crowded with people? And how quickly will people do that? Or will people just be used to watching things on television? That remains to be seen. One bright spot is that we've seen a lot of sports teams, particularly in the NBA, are much more involved and engaged with LGBTQ fans throughout the year. Um, so far, two-thirds of NBA teams, as well as every WNBA team, has hosted events to cater to LGBTQ fans, as did all but two Major League Baseball teams. These events recognize that this community makes up a sizable proportion of the population, and it's really a hopeful trend for inclusivity in sports. So teams are a sports brand, but there are also a variety of sports brands like Nike and Adidas that are connected directly to teams. They have to decide the degree of connection to the teams, and that partnership can give them the opportunity to reach millions of people in one instance. Um, and we also see that a good number of fans believe products associated with the team to be more attractive than products not associated with the team. We also saw the power of these sports brand connections have in addressing social issues when FedEx and Nike both strongly influenced the Washington Redskins to change their name during the summer of 2019. So the power of the purse for sports brands can be very strong. A lot that sports teams have to balance out. Um, they have to win, right? But this idea of winning at all costs, if it's going to cause physical harm to people, is something that teams are rethinking. Integrity, competing by the rules and playing games fairly, and how, and that's really connected with winning because if you'll do things to make it make it more possible for you to win. I'm looking at you, New England Patriots, and Inflate Gate. Um, you know that you that is not a good message, a responsible message for brands to be sending out. Um, can sports teams address the social issues surrounding the game in fair and equitable ways, and in ways that are authentic? And in terms of community responsiveness, are teams doing the best job of giving back to the people and communities that support the team? And do those audiences believe that the efforts by the teams are authentic and transparent? So, lots of things that teams have to continue to work on moving into the future.